Well, the Nazis repudiated two of the fundamental values that Christianity has always enshrined, and one of them you just touched on, the idea that the survival of the fittest, that the idea that to be strong is to be good. It's kind of fairly fundamental idea, say for the Greeks. I mean, they kind of conflated, the good beauty and goodness and strength. This it was to be a good person. But of course, the other fundamental Christian ideal that the Nazis repudiate is the idea that, as Paul put it, there is no Jew or Greek. And that in turn is a kind of refinement of the teaching of Genesis, that God creates man and woman in his image. And therefore, if men and women are created in the image of God, every human being has an inherent dignity. And this is an idea that over the course of the Middle Ages kind of feeds into the idea that human beings have rights, that if, and this is something that that churchmen and lawyers in the 12th century start to extrapolate from the gospel teachings. If Christ is saying to the wealthy, you have a duty to feed the hungry and to clothe those who have no clothes and to give shelter to those who are homeless, then it follows that the hungry have a right to food, and those without clothes have a right to clothes, and those who don't have a home have a right to a home. And so you start to get the idea that human beings have inherent rights. And these are ideas that secularized feed into the American Revolution, into the French Revolution, into United Nations. It's a very, very profound idea that today, for lots of people who believe in human rights, they tend to kind of assume that they are immanent. But in the long run, when you look at it in the kind of historical perspective, to believe in human rights requires just as much a leap of faith as believing that the Lord Jesus Christ rose on the third day and ascended into heaven. I mean, these are theological precepts, theological ideas that have been bred specifically of Christian history, and the genius of the West has been to kind of package them and market them as though somehow they've been, removed from the Christian context that gave them birth. Yeah. And I think that one of the things that we're seeing, seen over the past few decades, really since the 21st century, is that as Western power and influence retreats, so more and more of the world is kind of basically saying, well, these ideas, these ideals are, these are culturally contingent. These are your ideas. They're not our ideas. And I think that this is unsettling for people in the West precisely because we have the kind of, the shadow of the Nazis hangs over us, because the Nazis absolutely did think against Paul that Jews and Greeks were completely separate, and we know where that led. And part of the horror of the Holocaust, the kind of the horror and the most grotesque irony in the history of Christendom, is that Hitler saw Paul, St. Paul, who said there is no Jew or Greek, as the embodiment of a kind of pernicious a Jewish cosmopolitanism that he saw as having destroyed Greece and Rome. He thought this idea that there is no Jew or Greek, that there is no slave or free, that there is no man or woman, had corrupted classical civilization and destroyed it.
So your thinking behind that is Hitler thought that the Jews were subhuman, they were not human, and somehow they climbed under the idea that...
He saw them as the most dangerous enemy of the strong. That Paul is preaching Christ crucified. He's preaching this dead man on a cross. He's preaching this universalism, this cosmopolitanism, and this destroys the Roman Empire. And so Hitler thinks that if his Reich is going to last 1,000 years and not be brought down by a creeping Jewish cosmopolitanism, then he has to get rid of the Jews. But there's a case for saying that he targets the Jews for genocide because he blames them for Christianity, which, considering the fact that he draws on obviously all kinds of kind of very venerable Christian, anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish propaganda, I mean, it's just the most hideous irony and paradox.